This brief is entitled The Compounding Military Pension, a Failure in Military Strategic Readiness. At some point in the future, the United States military is anticipating a major conflict between a near-peer adversary. The more time that passes until the date of that future conflict, the less financially ready we will be able to bear the associated extreme cost. Because while Department of Defense budgets are not expected to materially increase in the future, military retirement pension and healthcare costs absolutely are. Every financial report of the United States government for over 20 years has stated that we are on an unsustainable fiscal path, so much so that this warning has somewhat lost its impact. Chart 7 in the most recent fiscal report shows that the amount of spending as a percentage of gross domestic product or GDP on Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, defense, and all other non-interest spending by the government remains relatively constant for the next 75 years. What doesn't remain constant is resources dedicated to covering net interest expense, which on our current path will consume 25% of our entire economy if policies are left unchanged. Pretending that net interest won't crowd out future Department of Defense budgets is naive, as would pretending that retirement costs aren't already impacting workforce structural decisions. In 1968, there were 3.5 million active duty service members. Today, there are about 1.2 million. The number of retirees collecting benefits has increased for 59 straight years to over 2 million today. But not all retirees are created the same. According to the statistical report on the military retirement system, an average active duty member starts collecting pension income around age 40, an average National Guard member 20 years later at around age 60. The average active duty pension in 2019 was approximately $35,000. The average National Guard pension was approximately $18,000. For every year of service, a military member earns 2.5% of their basic pay as a pension, which was reduced to 2% in 2018 under the blended retirement system. Still about twice what a federal technician will earn for every year of service under the federal employees retirement system at 1% per year of service. Active duty retirees collect free health care for life upon retirement. A National Guard retiree has to wait until age 60. And during working years, active duty health premiums are 100% subsidized by the government. The National Guard is subsidized at 72%, as members have to cover 28% of the cost share. Basically, our current approach to compensate for compounding retirement costs is to reduce the number of actively serving military members. A short-term solution, as more retirees, does not increase our national defense posture, it just makes it more expensive. Why does this matter? In 1961, the average life expectancy was 70.3 years. Now it's 78.5 years. If the current group of retirees lives one more year to an expected age of 79.5 years, we effectively buy 2 million more years of retirement, or about $88 billion, enough to buy 3 Gerald Ford aircraft carriers, 400 F-35 Lightning II aircraft, 127,000 soldiers for 1 year at 100,000 each for surge capacity, not separately, but combined. Theoretically, this would be the third largest national defense budget in the world, right behind the United States at number 1 and China at number 2. Thus, we have structured a military failure if our biggest risk to our nation's security is our service members' longevity. Now here's what you know to be true. You pay employees more the longer you employ them. That makes sense. A 20-year active duty member should collect less than a 40-year federal technician in the National Guard. I estimate the active duty member will have lifetime compensation of $3.8 million, $2.1 million during working years, and $1.6 million in retirement. And I estimate the federal technician will have lifetime compensation of $4.6 million, $3.3 million during working years, and $1.1 million in retirement. You also know that full-time employees cost more than part-time employees. That also makes sense. A full-time active duty member still collects $3.8 million, $2.1 million during working years, and $1.6 million in retirement. A traditional National Guardsman collects $1.1 million total, $640,000 during working years, and $460,000 during retirement. Here's what you may not know. Lowering workers' years of service requirements increases retirement expenses in 3 ways. First, lowering years of service requirements allows workers to enter retirement sooner. Imagine an 18-year-old can join the military through the active duty or the National Guard as a traditional guardsman or full-time federal technician. Active duty allows members to retire sooner at 20 years of service or age 38. The member can still retire at 20 years of service as a traditional guardsman, but will not be able to collect benefits in the gray area and will have to wait until the age of approximately 60. as will the federal technician, who will also collect retirement benefits later. Second, lowering years of service requirements allows workers to receive benefits longer. Because the active duty retiree enters retirement sooner, he or she will collect benefits longer. The National Guard retiree enters retirement later and thus collects benefits for a shorter period of time. And third, lowering years of service requirements causes workers to retire in larger groups. Assume a workforce of 100,000 will retire. At 20 years of service on average before retirement, 1/20th of your workforce, or 5,000 individuals, are expected to retire each year, and you would need to recruit and retrain 5,000 replacements. At 30 years of service on average before retirement, 1/30th of your workforce, or 3,333 individuals, are expected to retire each year, and you would need to recruit and retrain 3,333 replacements. At 40 years of service on average before retirement, 1/40th of your workforce, or 2,500 individuals, are expected to retire each year, and you would need to recruit and retrain 2,500 replacements. Anytime you are evaluating the cost efficiency of a workforce structure that includes a pension, you must review structure cost over a period of at minimum one lifetime. So let's do that. First, let's review anticipated structural cost of an air refueling wing of 1,000 airmen that can either be active duty or the National Guard. Both the active duty and the National Guard have 1,000 airmen working each year over a 78-year lifetime, so they are both structured to purchase or consume or use 78,000 working years. Because of the lower 20 years of service retirement requirement, the active duty 1,000 airman wing is structured to purchase or consume or use 128,000 retirement years. The 1,000 Airmen Air National Guard wing is structured to purchase, consume, or use a much lower 43,000 retirement years because the average years of service for a federal technician is much higher and because of the gray areas where traditional part-time guardsmen do not receive benefits. In 2020 dollars with no inflation, the 1,000 Airmen Active Duty wing would cost about $13.4 billion, $8.2 billion in working years, and $5.2 billion in retirement years. The 1,000 Airmen Air National Guard wing would cost about $6.6 billion, about $4.9 billion in working years, and $1.7 billion in retirement years. Thus, the Air National Guard wing is approximately $100 million less per year and $7 billion less per generation, mainly because it acquires 80,000 less in retirement years. What would happen if we converted or structured the entire current active duty Army and Air Force like the National Guard or Reserves? 800,000 service members working every year for 78 years is 62.4 million working years either way. However, the active duty model is structured to purchase 70 million years of retirement. The National Guard or Reserve model is structured to purchase 25 million years of retirement, or 45 million years less. In 2020 dollars, with no inflation, we would save over $5 trillion. These calculations do not include a reduction in permanent change of station, recruiting, and training expenses, or additional savings that could be achieved by eliminating other non-mission essential operations like on-base schools, department stores, and golf courses that are typically found on large active duty installations, but not on smaller, more efficient National Guard ones. We won the Cold War when the Soviet Union couldn't afford to modernize its military and its economy collapsed under promises made by its government. Are our enemies now employing the same strategy against us, waiting for our economy to collapse under the weight of equally unsustainable promises? If so, a solution to cover future procurement and modernization costs in a contested budgetary environment will be needed by the Department of Defense when we as a society and government finally decide that flirting with economic destruction and wandering down an unsustainable path is a poor strategic plan. When that day finally comes, the National Guard solves the compounding pension problem. I don't know the level of resources needed to pay for those future procurement and modernization costs, but I did write a program to tell us how many years of service would need to be added to the active duty model, or how many service members would need to be converted to the National Guard or Reserves to internally find savings to fund those costs should that be a known and defined number. There is no question that we are on an unsustainable path. The question now is how far we've wandered into unsustainable territory and what measures must be taken to get us back to sustainable ground. True leaders will ask these questions and not avoid them because the answers may be unpopular. I'm Stephen Paluga, standing by to answer your questions.